Ugh, it's here. Much to the public's dismay, With Love Meghan released part 2, packaged and marketed as season 2. Whole different mess, whole different can of worms there. And Meghan has gone on to make the same mistakes that she's been making this whole time, learning from absolutely nothing. So we knew what day the With Love Meghan episodes were going to be released. They announced that a few weeks ago, at least a couple weeks ago. But then Meghan made this mistake again, where she crowded that day and had multiple things released or announced or talked about on that same exact day. And this is a mistake because it doesn't allow a good spread throughout the news cycle. It minimizes the number of days that you will be coming up in the news cycle because you get it all done in the same day. But also it kind of floods the information in a way where people miss some of the stuff. They hear that the episodes are coming out that day, but then they have no idea the other stuff that you have going on that day. And that is bad business. It's bad PR. It's a mistake. We've talked about this before. So she did 3 things in one day. She released the episodes. Well, Netflix released the episodes. She made more products available on the As Ever site, and the Bloomberg interview went live all on the same day. So let's start with the whole releasing of products. You know how Netflix warned us what day we could expect With Love Meghan to grace our screens? Well, Meghan didn't do that for her product drop this time around, or really any other time around. It's always a surprise. An unwelcome one at that, but she completely skipped over this really important step, especially in retail and products like this, direct-to-consumer goods, of warming up the consumer and letting them know that there will be some stuff available on such and such date. I mean, it's not like many people are all that excited to buy her products. The demand is inflated in the media thanks to the Sussex's press releases. The demand is actually quite low, and we know this. There's a very small number of people who were like waiting on the edge of their seats to buy more products. But even still, she didn't warn these supposed fans to be ready, that they could count on products coming available. I mean, real people have budgeting things or timing things where maybe they would want to be available or pencil it in for their lunch break that day or have a little extra spending cash available that week. Had people been warned and known that the products were going to come available, she didn't do this. She skipped this step. And then to have the Bloomberg interview on top of it, it just crowded everything in the news. And I believe the reason why she did this and had all 3 things happen at once and didn't really prime the public for it was so that all the news would happen on the same day on purpose in order to minimize the presence of the negative reviews of her show to be in the news cycle. You know what I mean? She crowded the news on purpose to stifle those reviews in a rather sad attempt to hide her failures. Because now the news cycle, anybody coming around and looking at it has this wide variety of different things going on and being reported on. And it's not all just negative reviews about With Love Meghan, which is all the reviews that I've seen so far have been negative, including my own. But anyway, let's start with the trailer that they released. I have been sick. Thank you all for your well wishes. I do so appreciate it. That was really sweet of you guys. I just wanted to let you know why I was late to get new content out to you. This month has been a little crazy for me. But anyway, let's start with the preview because I have not talked about this. The highlight, I guess you could call it, of this preview is the dislike ratio on this thing. Look, when I took this screenshot, it had 451,000 views about, and only 3,500 likes. But there was almost 37,000 dislikes, 36,699 dislikes, which is a 91% dislike rate. That is extreme. And the vast majority of those almost 17,000 comments were negative or poking fun at the whole thing, which makes sense. But it was kind of funny to see the dislike ratio on this when you pair that with how Meghan and Netflix are trying to package this as more was wanted, when clearly it wasn't. They are very much trying super, super hard with packaging this second season, which, as we have discussed, I don't want to sound like a broken record saying it every single time, so I'm not going to say it after today. This is just part 2. They filmed all of these episodes at once. Last summer, August 2024 and July 2024, I think were the dates. It might have just been July. Anyway, they filmed it in the summer of 2024. All of these together. And they have released them as 2 seasons. But really, it's just parts 1 and part 2 of 1 season. Because typically, when you shoot something with the intention of it being 2 separate seasons, you don't always do it so close together back to back. But it makes sense why they had to, because Meghan was renting out or had her friend lend her the guest house that she used as a set. So they did kind of need to, like, I can understand why they filmed both of them back to back, but when you film something back to back, you're doing it all in one big batch. It's all written at the same time. It's all in pre-production at the same time. And then it's all in post-production at the same time, pretty much. So it really is just part 1 and part 2 of 1 season. But calling it season 2 is just marketing. It's a split season is a good way to think of it. But they have really tried to pivot this, even just the preview, as something a little bit different. They're trying to convey that they have made some changes, even just in the preview, to what we experienced in season 1. But the fact that this was all filmed at one time and has been split and released 2 separate times, this batch has been released 13 months after filming. Why does that matter? Well, first off, it means that the content is going to be even more stale than it already feels. One of the biggest criticisms of the first part, the season 1, was how the whole thing felt like a Pinterest board at least a decade old. Meghan's approach and the visual elements and the things that she was making or cooking or doing in the show all felt like older ideas, things that we saw 10 years ago, which made it uninteresting and useless to the target audience. But it also felt very boring because it was all stuff we've seen before. But to have the footage itself also be over a year old now makes it feel even more stale. It just accentuates that feeling. And we see this a lot, especially if there's delays in a project, even with like really popular shows or films, movies that people are expected to love and have been waiting and there's anticipation for it, series that people love. By the time they get around to the last season, if there was a delay in production or a delay with writing, like we saw a lot with the writers' strikes, the SAG strikes and things like that went on within Hollywood, the TV shows and the movies got pushed pause on and delayed. Then the whole thing ended up feeling kind of stale. And a lot of those movies that were affected by those strikes didn't perform as well. And a lot of the shows didn't perform as well. And the audience didn't like the stories as much, in large part because that big delay did create a sort of stagnant feel to the content itself and to the stories. And then it just didn't hit the same. It didn't feel as fresh or exciting because those stories and the storylines had been written a little bit too long ago. Even just like the character arcs started to feel a little bit dated by the time a film or a show gets completed after a lot of delays. And so it's not unique to just Meghan's show here, but it is something that could have been avoided for Meghan's show. She didn't necessarily have to film it all at once and then wait an entire 13 months to release it. They could have either released it quicker or just gone with 2 separate filming sessions. It would have been a little bit more expensive and a little bit more challenging, but it would have kept the content feeling more fresh and given her the opportunity to make improvements before season 2 came around. And given the fact that Meghan's show concept was already boring and stale, now having been sitting around for 13 months, it feels archaic at this point. And it also matters in terms of the editing. The trailer this time around is even more so heavily edited than the first one, like aggressively. Take this moment here. You can tell that it's been cut right before she's about to say another word.
Love the idea of spending time together, spending time together, spending time together, spending time together.
And throughout the trailer, it's so choppy for a production that boasts 80 people and a big budget studio like Netflix to make this happen. It should not have choppy editing, but it does because of Meghan and the quality not being there. So what does this choppy nature really tell us? It indicates that they've worked really hard to either edit her footage into something else or try to make repairs. This looks like a giant cut and paste project where they've had to fix it to make it less terrible. I'm sure the team and or Meghan immediately regretted filming it all at once last summer because it robbed them of the chance to take the feedback and shift her approach to something more likable, better suited for TV, less boring and bland. Any degree of improvement has been diminished because they cannot reshoot this nonsense. It's not making Netflix hardly any of their investment back, and they're just trying to scrape this together and salvage it somehow, and it really does feel like a cut and paste project. So instead, in their process of trying to salvage this project's footage for this part 2 and contort it into something more appealing than it is, they have added a lot of voiceovers of Meghan. That's relatively economical to do, to just have her come back in and do some voiceovers. But they cannot fix the entire thing with just voiceovers alone. I predict an incredibly choppy experience watching this show, an abrupt set of episodes with several obviously doctored voiceovers that feels incredibly disjointed. That is my prediction. I'm going to start watching it, and I'm going to film the reviews and try to get them out to you in a row. Maybe I'll throw in an intermission of that Bloomberg interview review. But it's obvious that Netflix has heard the feedback as well. We can deduce from their heavily edited trailer here the way that they're trying to package this. They understand the criticisms, all right? Take, for example, the fact that they had Meghan say things like, "I'm so glad you're here to teach me this" in the preview. They want her to, at least in the preview, come across as a learner, because that was one of the major criticisms of part 1, that she doesn't have the expertise to be trying to teach these things. She's not very good at it. She's not a natural teacher. Some people are. The best teachers that you can remember had that natural, engaging way of leading you down a lesson. Meghan doesn't have that. And they desperately want people to give it a second chance. Largely, it looks like more of the same. As we know, since it was all filmed at once, there can't really be that many changes made in post-production. Editing can only take you so far. If the content that you have to work with is of the same quality as the first batch, then this show is going to be more of the same. Duh. People have also taken issue with the guest selection. For example, we have several guests that simply aren't really going to draw the audience in. Guests who the general public are not familiar with are not going to draw eyeballs. Like, for example, Daniel, the makeup artist, or her other friend, Heather. Like, these are people that the general public aren't going to tune in to see. But then there's also controversial people like Chrissy Teigen. I don't think that this would be as controversial if Meghan didn't try to claim that she is leading the way with online safety and anti-bullying. You know what I mean? She and Harry, they even did that giant Jane Pauley interview. They have tried to make it known that they are against online bullying and they are going to champion this cause. And yet she has somebody who's infamous for that very thing on her show. I'm sorry. How does that work? How does that even happen? She and Harry, even though we know that they aren't really doing much in this arena, they claim to care about this subject. They say that they care about online bullying and online safety, especially for children. So then, where is your action to back that up in real life with your choices? Why would you have someone who was essentially canceled by the public and lost fans and deals due to her behavior of online bullying, somebody who was, I think at the time, a teenager? Why would she come on your show? It maketh no sense. Explain it. It's just a very strange choice, and it sends a weird message. It undermines either one or the other. You know, it either becomes this see-through situation where she's so desperate that she'll take anybody on her show, whether it aligns with her values or not. Therefore, she has no backbone and she's just doing this to try to make her show work, which is a selfish sort of a thing to do, questions your ethics. Or she doesn't actually care about online bullying, and she doesn't actually care about creating a safer space online for children, because if she did, she would be setting an example and not associate with somebody who is like one of the most infamous online bullies of the current moment, because all that came out not that long ago. It still feels kind of fresh with Chrissy's name. So it can't be both. It's one or the other. It's hypocritical. It's undermining her message, her morals here, and it's just a super weird choice. Pre-bullying scandal Chrissy would have made sense, because Chrissy was in the space of a more relatable foodie type of vibe of cooking, and I think she had a cookbook. I think she had some cookware for sale at Target, I think. And her social media was her medium. She didn't do like a Netflix show or anything like that, I don't believe. I think she just did it on social media. I mean, I wasn't like paying super close attention or anything, but that's what I kind of remember hearing about. And so before this bullying stuff happened, Chrissy would have been a great fit. But because it happened, and because of the way Meghan has positioned herself, it doesn't. And this harkens back to that conflict that Queen Elizabeth II made clear to Harry and Meghan, that you really can't do both. You can't claim to be living a life of service and supporting charitable causes and initiatives and trying to support some things that you think are super important, like online bullying or whatever it is. You can't do that and focus on these for-profit things, because you end up with all these conflicts of interest and competing interests as well. As for the other guests, the lack of chemistry seems to be out in full force with this set of guests also. So I'm not really expecting any true improvements. But how about you? What are your predictions for this season? I am kind of surprised in a way that they managed to get some of her As Ever products available again, timed for the release of these episodes, because that was the whole point, was to have the products and the show happening at the same time in harmony together. But at the time of prepping this video, absolutely nothing has sold out at this point, which means two things. They probably did stock more. She claimed in her Bloomberg interview that they stocked infinitely more, which is a mistake, and we will talk about that when we talk about the interview. But also, there is a lot less interest and a lot less buzz around this time. So she is going to see, surely, her sales plateau now that the initial reviewer spike has ended. When she made more wine available and it didn't sell, they tried to boast that 10,000 bottles were sold within the first day or something like that. But that's only about 833 cases. That's absolutely nothing in terms of a wine sale when you speak about business terms of how many cases sold create a success. Even the smallest of limited collections expect to sell at least 1,000 cases. Boutique and small wineries expect to sell 50,000 cases to have a successful year. So that just puts it into context for you on just how badly this is going and how slow the product is moving. And as we discussed before, the first few drops were a false precedent of people wanting to do the reviews. So if you scale based on those first few, when you're somebody like Meghan, who's really controversial and has a lot of people interested in making reviews, whether you agree with that or not, then you're going to have a skewed number in the beginning. And you need to wait until those numbers stabilize before you make decisions on how you scale. And it sounds like she didn't do that. It sounds like she scaled based on those initial numbers, which would be a mistake. And so far, the reviews are not great. Meghan Markle's calculated Netflix show with Love Meghan Season 2, Part 2, bashed by critics, woman in need of some cash. It does kind of feel like that, doesn't it? A little bit desperate. The second season is just as brutal to watch as Season 1, according to critics. Just hours after hitting the streamer, the series was mercilessly mocked by several critics who slammed the show as tone-deaf and self-indulgent. Because it is. In its 2-star review of the second season, The Telegraph labeled Markle's latest episodes needy and said they were only marginally less bad than the first season, thanks to a lot of post-production work, no doubt. It's more of the same, but this time there is an urgent question to be asked. Has she got Harry locked in the pantry? Because while these 8 episodes are stuffed with mentions of Harry, the man himself is nowhere to be seen, which looks increasingly weird in a show based on the couple's Californian home life. Yes, but to be fair, this is just a mistake in how Meghan has marketed and presented this show, because she is filming it in a set and has made that clear. And why would Harry be involved in these things unless he too does cooking and homemaking and crafting, which he doesn't, likely. So then why would he be involved? I'm not sure I fully agree with this, but at the same time, it just speaks to the mistake that Meghan made of trying to make it about her home life, her love story with her home and garden. Don't call it that. Don't tell people that you're trying to show this like a reality show, and don't give it that reality show vibe if it's not your reality. Just she should have done it more like a regular stand and stir, but she doesn't have the skill for that. So, I mean, she was already in a bit of a pickle with trying to do this. Not that I support it. I don't think it was a good idea from the start. But marketing it in the way that she did does give people the expectation that there should be more of her family and her real home life. It should feel more real and realistic to how she actually lives. But in reality, that is not how she set up this show at all. The outlet's scathing review also notes that too many of Markle's on-screen conversations seem calculated. Yes, because she scripted them. What does this say about me? Am I dropping in just enough detail about Archie and Lily to satisfy the audience? Elsewhere, the Times of London said that the latest installment of Markle's show is a series in search of a meaning fronted by a woman in need of some cash. 7 more episodes to go. Save yourselves. Don't do it. The Sun's royal editor called the series self-indulgent. Markle's second series of her self-indulgent Netflix show has hit screens with more nauseating clips of her gushing over simple foods. The Guardian, meanwhile, said Markle's new episodes were so painfully contrived. It's so boring, so contrived, so effortfully whimsical that, do you know what? In the end, it does become almost fascinating. I like the way she phrased that, effortfully whimsical. Yes, that is the whole thing about whimsy. It should be natural. It should be effortless. When it's effortful, it's all contrived and no one likes watching it. So I have been sick, as I let you guys know, so I do apologize about my voice, but I am so excited to get some of these videos out to you. I have episode 1 almost ready to go, and I will be putting it out pretty much back to this one, so be sure that you're subscribed. And in the meantime, if you would like to take a look back at season 1's reviews and episode by episode, as well as the whole As Ever saga so far, then take a look at this playlist that I will link for you here at the end of today's video. I will be covering each episode as I did last time, trying to view it from the lens of a homemaker and home cook myself, and somebody who does do a lot of crafts, especially with my kids, to try to see if there is anything of value from an objective point of view, just like I did last time. But I will try to get them out sooner to you than I did last time. I really was super slow last time. I'm going to try to do it a little quicker because I have been stuck at home sick, so I have been able to watch them. And I will be sprinkling in, of course, as usual, some updates on the real royals, as well as some nonsense from the wannabes. So there'll be some extra videos the next couple of weeks. Be sure you're subscribed so you do not miss them. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!